Hi everyone, welcome back to Coffee, Books, and Rain, where I actually have a cup of ginger turmeric tea because it is a little chilly here in my apartment and it is also about 5 p.m. So I thought I would get something that would warm me up but not keep me awake later this evening. And it's really good, but you really kind of have to like ginger and turmeric, but spicing things up as you will. There is a rainstorm supposed to be rolling through here in maybe about an hour, so I thought I'd better get to recording because supposedly this storm is supposed to be like quite a squall. I had to move a couple things off of my patio just to make sure things didn't blow away and get all a kerfuffle. So anyway, with all of that being said, we are here talking about books as we do, and we are talking about a book that I encountered. It is called The Case of the Elusive Bombay Duck by Tarquin, and this is number 6 of the Vish Puri series. Now, as with many kind of investigative sleuthing series, I don't think you have to read them in a specific order. If you do, you're just going to get like one case after the other. So I don't think it's really incredibly important to truly read them one right after the other. In fact, this was my very first one to read of this particular series, and I found it pretty good, but I don't feel like I was missing anything. I just was missing, I guess, more than anything, the sleuthing part of it all. But let me dive into the summary real quick, and then we will go from there. Portly, perceptive, and spectacularly mustachioed, India's finest private detective, Vish Puri, tackles his most difficult case to date in the long-awaited return of Tarquin Hall's delightful, humorous whodunit series set in New Delhi. When Vish Puri, India's most private detective, learns he's won the coveted International Detective of the Year award, it's supposed to be a secret, but within hours it seems all of Delhi knows, and his indomitable Mummy G announces she'll be coming with him to the ceremony in London. Never mind that she's not been invited. To add to his woes, a senior government bureaucrat gives him an undercover mission he can't refuse. Puri is tasked with tracking down India's most wanted fugitive, a billionaire pharmaceutical fraudster codenamed Bombay Duck, who's rumored to be hiding in the British capital. Puri's only spending a week in London, and he's already promised his wife he won't work during this once-in-a-lifetime trip. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there. There's just a little bit more left, but I think that's enough to kind of give you a bit of a summary as to what we are diving into. Now, this does say it's about 224 pages in the hardcover and is expected publication of March 4th, 2025. So, with all that, let us dive in. I love a good sleuthing, a good whodunit. There is no particular murder to solve. There is a mystery, perhaps, because when we first start out, of course, Vish Puri, he is this Indian detective who is, well, we kind of see him in his office solving a case for an individual. And he's just received the call that, hey, you really need a, nudge, nudge, be in London this year because this year's Detective of the Year award, nudge, nudge, though it's not fully set, nudge, nudge, you probably have won. And so he gets very excited because even though he hasn't gone in the past years, he's been nominated, but he has not received the award. So this year, he is getting this kind of like elbow to the ribs saying, hey, you've won this year, so you really need to show up, wink, wink. And he starts trying to like plan his speech and all this sort of stuff. He calls his wife and he lets her know they need to go to London for this thing. Well, within, minutes really, pretty much all of New Delhi knows. His telling his wife was pretty much like making a social media post or putting it out in the newspaper, making a public service announcement, because pretty much within the hour, everybody knows. And his mom calls him to ask why she heard that he had won this award from somebody else. And he's like, I haven't actually won this award yet. They only just called me 30 minutes ago, or, in a very short period of time ago, and it's not fully decided yet. And she's like, oh, don't worry. I'm going to go with you. And he specifically didn't even tell his mom, because he had gotten his wife and himself their passports and visas like 3 or so plus months in advance. Well, he kind of didn't tell his mom earlier that this may be a possibility, because he didn't really want her to go. Well, he doesn't know how she did it, but she's able to accomplish getting this visa and flights and all this sort of stuff in like 3 days. She didn't even have a passport, and she's able to get a passport in like 3 days. So, of course, she appears at the airport ready to go with them and all this sort of stuff. So he off they go to London in order to kind of make a little bit of this once-in-a-lifetime trip to London. However, before he leaves, he is contacted, as the summary said, by a government official, a government bureaucrat, who says, hey, while you're there, we have intel that this particular pharmaceutical billionaire has fled India and is now over there. So while you're there, we want you, because we trust you, to find this guy. And he's like, well, I'm not going for that, so I really don't want to do that. And he's like, no, we're not asking you. You're being told. So he's like, well, crap. Okay, fine. So anyway, off he goes. And he's pretty much kind of like, he's not going to tell his wife that he's going to do this. And all of this really kind of happens in the first, 10% of the book. But I think I get a little bit on the fence about this book, because I love a book with action and things happening, especially with regards to the case. And that's where, for me, this book falls a little bit short. I feel like they're doing everything else under the sun, which is totally fine, to enjoy your trip to London and go visit neighbors and go visit friends and family and all this sort of stuff. But oh my gosh, if the case seems to be the least important thing, like, in the world. Like, sure, Puri seems to every once in a while do something, like go talk to somebody, but it doesn't feel super relevant to the case, in all honesty. Like, there's a lot of stuff that he's kind of doing and not doing that just doesn't feel very relevant to the case, even when the case ultimately gets resolved, let's say. Feels like it was kind of like an aside to everything else that was happening in the book. So for me, that's where I kind of got a little bit lost. This book to me felt more as though it was kind of like this traveling to London and just silly antics. Like, if it was kind of billed to me as humor with some sleuthing undertones, I probably would believe it. But I don't remember, and I've read a lot of Hercule Poirot. And don't tell Vish Puri that he is the Indian Poirot, because he will argue you down that India was first in their sleuthing and detectiving skills. However, he is kind of like that, in the fact that he is kind of this portly, mustachioed Indian detective. But he's a little more campy. He's a little more silly. He's not as serious when it comes to, like, I guess, hunting down clues. And I think Hercule Poirot seems to focus more on the case, and of course doesn't have the same sort of, like, he doesn't have his Mummy G kind of floating around solving her own sort of cases. He doesn't have his wife that he's gonna have to, like, keep placated and all this sort of stuff. He doesn't have a nephew that's kind of like reluctantly helping him around town. And I don't know, it felt like a whole bunch, it felt like 80% family drama, 20% 20% sleuthing, I guess you could say. That's probably where my mind went. And honestly, it was funny. It was humorous. There were some parts that kind of grated me the wrong way, but I do have an issue when someone is like almost obligated to help family, like when someone's like, oh well, we're family, you have to do this. And my knee-jerk reaction is absolutely not. Absolutely not. I am a hyper independent individual, and if someone's like, oh well, we're family, you have to do this, I'm like, no I don't. So there were a lot of moments in this book where the more adult or more of the senior aged characters would kind of talk down to some of the younger characters in that manner. And I understand that in their culture, it is just a sign of respect for the older generations that they do revere them in that way. However, for me, I just respect is earned. And that was a knee-jerk reaction for me. That is nothing about the book at all. The next thing I thought was funny was the titling of it of a Bombay duck. Now, I didn't really understand the title, and at first I'm like, I'm just thinking, of course, like a duck. I didn't Google that ahead of time. However, I do get to learn through just the antics of the book that the British detective is the one who gave the target, the billionaire pharmaceutical. He's the one, the British detective, is the one who gave the billionaire pharmaceutical the name of the Bombay duck, not the Indian counterparts, not the Indian government. Because a Bombay duck in India is like a fish. And so when Puri gets to London in order to kind of like go meet up with Scotland Yard to find out, what they kind of know, he is very taken aback. He's like, why do you call him a fish? And he's like, and so then the detective's like, well, one, because it's kind of like a double entendre sort of thing. He's like, because he's elusive, and I don't know. I was just like, okay. So it felt a little funny, silly to me, but I get that as well. That's where some of the humor was, kind of continuing that going. Do I consider this a thriller? Because part of the genre that it's listed under is mystery thriller, and I would absolutely not call this a thriller by any means. Definitely call this a mystery, sleuthing perhaps, whodunit, absolutely. There is some crime involved, but anyway, those were just some of my thoughts with regards to this, because I do see the allure of this book. I also am surprised I had the audiobook and really enjoyed the narration. I thought the narration was very well done because they did have a voice actor who had the Indian accent, Indian dialect, who was able to convey it in what I assume would be the way that the author hoped it was intended. And thus it did give like the inflections that I felt the characters would have been speaking in. I also just really enjoyed the kind of the humor and inflection he inputted as well. But it was almost an 11-hour audiobook, which I'm surprised at for a 224-page hardback book, because I would have assumed that would have only been about an 8-hour hardback book. But I don't know. I haven't seen the physical copy of the book to really know what it looks like girth-wise, for sure, to tell you for sure, for certain. It is more of like a cozy sleuthing, cozy mystery. So that's totally fine. And I enjoy those type of books, but I don't think it was what I was fully expecting when I dove into it. I think when I read the title and saw that it was going to be kind of a mystery, kind of like whodunit, I think I thought it was going to be a little bit more Sherlock Holmes, Agatha Christie, you know, problem solving, case solving. We were going to really put these pieces of puzzle together. And I just don't feel like I got that. So I do give it I'm probably going to go ahead and give it 4 stars on NetGalley and Goodreads. However, I think if I were to truly be able to star this appropriately, I'd probably give it like a 3.75, just simply because it was a little unbalanced with regards to family drama, like I said, and the sleuthing aspect of it. But again, these are my own thoughts, and this is just what I'm thinking, because it does look like the NetGalley and the Goodreads readers are really enjoying this. So, hey, I'm just here to give you guys my thoughts, and that's what you get. But thank you so much for being here, for liking and subscribing, and if you haven't, I hope you will. And I hope you'll come back and see me again in the future, or, you know, go back and check out some of the other videos that I also have. Let me know down below if there's anything you ever want me to read, and I will see you guys on the next page. Have a great one.